Sometimes it's the quieter changes that actually tell you the most about what's going on. And right now in Morocco, there are some really fascinating things happening culturally. Sort of hints at, well, a nation looking back at its roots, but also really stepping into the future.
Oh, absolutely. We've been looking through the 7 Days Culture publication. This is from April 2025. And yeah, it points to some pretty significant shifts.
Okay.
So we thought we'd dive into maybe 3 key things today. They give a really good snapshot, I think, of Morocco's cultural energy right now.
Sounds good. 3 key areas. Where are we starting?
Let's kick off with something very tangible, the big push to formalize and also digitize Morocco's huge artisanal sector.
Right.
Then we can kind of shift gears and look at this big global project mapping out food heritage. Morocco's involved there too.
Okay. Food heritage.
And then maybe end on a more reflective note, remembering a really important figure in Moroccan music who recently passed away.
Got it. Artisans, food, music, each sounds like it offers a different angle on, well, Moroccan culture today.
Exactly.
So the artisanal sector, I know it's massive there, just huge. What's the main thing happening?
So the big headline is they're distributing 300,000 professional cards to artisans across Morocco.
Okay, 300,000. That sounds like a lot.
It is. And, to get why this is a big deal, you have to understand the context. This is part of a law, Law 50.1 any hive.
Right.
And the aim is basically to bring this massive, mostly informal sector, into the formal economy.
Okay, how informal are we talking?
Well, figures suggest something like 2.5 million artisans total.
Wow.
But only around maybe 420,000 are officially registered nationally. So you see the gap. It's huge.
Yeah, that really paints a picture. So this card, it's obviously more than just like an ID card.
Oh, definitely. Think of it more like a passport to opportunity.
Okay.
It gives them access to national and international trade fairs. That alone can be, game-changing for visibility, for finding new customers.
I can imagine.
And then there's more. It unlocks access to social benefits, which is crucial. Things like transport facilities, even help with housing aid. It's about building a proper foundation.
So real tangible benefits, and I think you mentioned digitalization too. It's not just the card.
Exactly. They're running in parallel. There's this framework agreement signed for digitalization. It involves the state secretariat, Barid al-Maghrib, that's the Moroccan Postal Service,
Okay.
and the Federation of Artisan Chambers. The whole idea is to give this traditionally, non-digital sector the tools for the modern age.
Which just makes so much sense now.
Yeah.
So what does that actually mean for, say, a weaver or a potter?
Well, the goal is to equip them with, modern ways to sell, promote their work, handle payments.
Right.
So imagine that potter in Fez being able to easily set up an online shop, showcase their amazing work, and sell it to someone in, Canada or Japan.
Yeah.
Plus, it should mean easier access to things like reduced rate bank loans, electronic payment systems, just smoothing out the business side of things.
That connection to the global market, it feels like a really big leap.
It is. And linking this ancient craft tradition with, how people buy things today.
And the timing seems pretty good too, right? With tourism picking up again.
Absolutely perfect timing. Tourism's bouncing back strongly in Morocco, and that always means more demand for authentic crafts. But, tourists, like everyone else, are more connected now. They research online, they buy online. So the sector needs to adapt. This digitalization is key for that.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And if an artisan wants this card, wants to get involved, is it like a bureaucratic nightmare?
Apparently not. They've tried to make the registration process pretty straightforward. It's handled through the regional artisan chamber, so it should be accessible.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
It really sounds like a comprehensive plan. What's the official line? What's the government saying about the impact?
Well, the minister is framing this professional card as first official recognition, which is important in itself, but also as a gateway to new markets and really a concrete way to improve artisans' lives. And at the same time, it helps structure a sector that's just so central to Moroccan identity and, frankly, the economy.
Yeah.
It's that interesting mix again, isn't it?
Yeah.
Valuing this incredible ancestral know-how, but also looking firmly towards the future.
It really is. Valuing heritage by, boosting the economics of it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift focus now. This global food atlas, Morocco, Saudi Arabia, and UNESCO. That sounds like a pretty major team up.
It really does. Yeah. Picture this huge ongoing project to map out culinary traditions, not just recipes, but the whole culture around food from all over the world.
Wow.
Identifying them, documenting them, trying to preserve them. That's the core idea of this International Atlas of Food Heritage.
Right.
It's this joint effort recognizing how deeply cultural food is and also how important it is for sustainable development.
And UNESCO's involvement links it to that broader heritage work, I guess.
Exactly. It ties right into UNESCO's 2003 Convention for Safeguarding Intangible Cultural Heritage. It's a reminder that culture isn't just buildings and monuments, right? It's practices, knowledge, skills, like cooking.
So definitely not just a fancy cookbook then.
Oh, far from it. The Atlas wants to spotlight these traditional food practices as like essential parts of cultural identity, how they help sustain communities, how they strengthen ties between generations. It's about the stories, the context, the knowledge systems behind the food.
That's a really ambitious scope.
Yeah.
Is there a timeline? When might we actually see something from this?
They're aiming for a first version of the Atlas around 2027. So it's a few years out, but understandable given the scale.
Yeah.
And it's important work, especially when you think about the threats these traditions face.
Like what kind of threats?
Well, the usual suspects, really. Globalization, homogenizing tastes.
Yeah.
Climate change impacting traditional ingredients and farming. And just the general gradual loss of knowledge as older generations pass on. This Atlas feels like a really proactive move against that erosion.
A kind of nose arc for food traditions.
Right.
What's the UNESCO perspective on why it's so crucial?
Well, Eric Fault, he's UNESCO's regional director for the Maghreb, put it quite nicely. He said food practices reflect our identities, sure, but also our relationship with nature.
Ah, interesting point.
Yeah. So he sees this project as absolutely essential for safeguarding these connections for the future.
And what about Morocco's role? What's their specific focus within this big collaboration?
Mustafa Jolak, who directs cultural heritage in Morocco, really emphasized the need to work closely with local community.
Right, grassroots level.
Exactly. It's about preserving the knowledge that's passed down face-to-face, generation to generation, and reinforcing that link between food, who you are culturally, and how you live sustainably.
It's quite something to see Morocco playing this active role on the world stage, not just promoting its own amazing food, but helping preserve everyone's.
It really is. It shows a strong commitment, I think, to being a custodian of this shared global wealth, making sure these traditions don't just disappear.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Okay, so we've covered artisans and this global food project. Now, you mentioned we'd also touch on a more somber note from the 7 Days Culture Report.
Yes, unfortunately. The publication also marked the passing of Mohcine Jamal, a truly iconic figure in Moroccan music.
No.
He passed away in Tangier. He was 77 and had been ill for some time. It's a really significant loss for the country's artistic heritage.
He was incredibly influential, wasn't he? A master of the oud.
Absolutely. A real virtuoso on the oud and just a passionate defender of Morocco's musical traditions throughout his life. He influenced so many musicians, so many listeners across different generations.
His sound is so distinctive. The article mentioned a couple of his famous songs.
Yeah, Zenith Talatine and A Kid. Those are probably two of his most emblematic, most recognized pieces. They really resonate, deeply embedded in the culture.
Can you give us a little more background on his career?
Sure. He was born back in 1948, started his professional music career in 1983.
Okay.
And over the years, he collaborated with some absolute giants of Moroccan music. People like Abdelwahab Doukali, Naima Sami, Mohamed El Hayani, big names. His work as both a singer and composer just left a huge mark.
It really does feel like, the end of an era with his passing, losing a voice that helped shape modern Moroccan musical identity.
It does feel that way. And it's interesting, isn't it, when you put all these pieces together, these forward-looking things like the artisan sector changes, the global food project, and then you have this moment of reflection on the legacy of someone like Mohcine Jamal.
Yeah.
You really see these threads, tradition, progress, cultural identity, just woven so tightly together in Morocco right now.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? When you look at all this, the crafts, the food, the music, it kind of poses a bigger question for you listening too. What does it actually mean for a country to, hold on to its past, protect its history, while also really pushing forward into the future?
Yeah, that tension.
And how important are these things that seem maybe every day? Things like crafts or food. How important are they in keeping that balance? It really highlights how how connected cultural heritage is to where society is going.
It really does. It's been fascinating to explore these different facets with you.
Absolutely. Thanks for diving into this with us.